Hello, folks, and welcome back to FOWL Players Radio. We're now on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel, FOWL Players Radio, and we're going to be releasing new episodes as well as selected past episodes on our YouTube page. So keep your eyes open for that. We bring back to the show Debra Lamb. Debra was on the show back in 2020, and Alfred Guy and I interviewed her. She's a fun guest. She's a really great person, and I always enjoy talking to her. Just a very, very nice person indeed. She came on to talk about her favorite horror movies for Halloween, some of the favorite things she likes to do around Halloween. Even though she has been in a lot of horror movies, she's not just what you would call a scream queen. She's got a very large range. She's played lots of different parts, and we're going to talk a bit about that. She really enjoys Westerns and being in Westerns. And we're also going to talk about her most latest projects that have been coming out. And she's always a fun guest. Her website is www.thedebralamb.com. You can also find her past episodes on fowlplayersradio.com and in the archives on any platform where you listen to FOWL Players Radio. Remember, our main page for audio versions of our podcast is www.fowlplayersradio.com. So check it out. Enjoy. Stay tuned for Debra Lamb. Folks, welcome back to FOWL Players Radio, and we're bringing back a guest that we had last year, actress Debra Lamb. Debra has come back to talk about some things that she's been working on in the past year. She's done all kinds of films that are going to be available to be seen if they're not out already. And we're going to talk a little bit later about her favorite things to do around Halloween and maybe some horror movies she happens to enjoy that she's enjoyed over the years. So welcome back, Debra. Great to see you.
Thank you, Michael. It's so great to be back. I had so much fun with you guys last year. I'm so pleased that you wanted me back, especially for Halloween, being as it's, everyone's favorite holiday, and of course mine too. And so we'll have lots of fun.
I find that people in the arts tend to gravitate more towards Halloween. Do you agree?
Well, I do agree with that. I really enjoy Christmas also, of course, but who doesn't love Halloween?
Oh, absolutely.
And then especially, I mean, of course, there's wonderful Christmas movies that everybody watches every year, but Halloween, like my husband and I just watched, we were watching Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp last night. And so some of these films that there's some films that we save for Halloween because they're just so much fun to watch during Halloween.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So I was looking at your IMDb page, and I see that you were in a movie. It looks like it was in 2021 called North Hollywood, and you played the part of a nun.
It was a very small part.
Okay. Yeah. And I know nuns can be pretty scary. What was yours like?
Yeah, it was a very small part.
Oh, okay. Okay. How about, I was also looking at the Deceased Won't Desist.
Yes. Okay. That's a film that I worked on last year with a good friend of mine, director Mark Pirro.
Oh, okay.
And I had worked with him over 30 years ago on a comedy called Death Row Game Show, which is kind of a cult classic film.
Right.
Really, really funny. And so Mark Pirro and I had lost track of each other, but due to Facebook, it's a great way to reconnect with old friends. We were connected again, and he's a great friend of mine. We've hung out many times, and then this film came along, The Deceased Won't Desist. I actually had, in the beginning stages of the film, I had a different role, but the actress that he originally had in mind for the role I took over, Erica Barnett, that actress was not available, so I was able to be chauffeured into the larger role of the widow the gold digging widow, Erica Barnett. And so I really had a really great time playing that role. And so that film is actually finished. And right now, Mark Pirro is, you can purchase the DVD and Blu-ray copies from him directly on his website, which is Paramount.
Oh, sure.
And but he is going to be, it is in the process of being distributed. So I'm waiting to find out what streaming platform it's going to be on, but it's ready to go.
Well, good. Well, we can't wait to see it. We definitely can't wait to see it. Another one that
that one is a really funny murder mystery comedy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounds like it by the title there. And that's something that I do, as a matter of fact. I own my own murder mystery company out here in Maryland, and we perform in Maryland and Pennsylvania, anywhere that we can find a good room, and trains and boats and that kind of thing. And it's a lot of fun. Have you ever done that kind of work before?
I came really close. There was a murder mystery comedy theater group that wanted me to join them, and I was very tempted to do it, but I just didn't have time because of my busy schedule working on films. So I had to pass, but it just seemed like a whole lot of fun.
Oh, it is. It really is. And I know. Have you done much improv or anything? 'Cause that's really what a lot of this is.
Yeah, I actually do come from an improv theater background. I was part of this theater group called the Wild Side Theater, and the owner director of that is a really brilliant actor named Sam Longoria, who I've kept in touch with. And yeah, that was a really fun group to be a part of. That was back in the 90s, I believe it was somewhere around the North Hollywood area. And that was just such an excellent training ground as an actor. It's that if you can join an improv group and have that training, it's wonderful to have.
Oh, it sure is. It's a lot of fun too. And I love the spontaneity of it, because the thing is that when you do those shows, the audience is never shy about putting their 2 cents in, and to be able to respond to that and keep the show going and keep the crowd into it and everything it's definitely a special skill you need to have, and yeah, and and then too, and some of the best lines in those shows, I think, come up spontaneously as well. Especially when you get an audience member who wants to jump right in, some of the best things you can come up with usually happen around those times, so that's good. So you were talking, I was also looking on here too. There was another show called another production called Vampire Penance, The Atonement of John Wolfe, The Atonement of John Wolfe. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, that the script is brilliant. It's written by John Rain, who's a very dear friend of mine. It will also be directed by John Rain. Now, there's a little bit of a misinformation in IMDb because we haven't actually filmed it yet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we were supposed to be filming it earlier this year, but there were a lot of delays. Which has actually worked out for the best, because the production has grown behind the scenes. And when we do film it, which will be next year sometime, it turned from being a really low budget film to a little bit bigger budget. Now it's a very big budget, and we will have a couple of A-list actors attached.
Oh, good.
Which I can't announce yet because contracts haven't been signed yet. But by the time we actually film it, it's really morphed into a small little passion project into something much, much bigger. So now next time I come on your show again, I'll have a lot more to talk about that project, because you know, I'll be able to disclose a lot of exciting
Sure,
things.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And and I understand how it is with that. You've got to remain tight-lipped until you're told not to, or you're told that you don't have to. And
Yeah.
yeah, so you really got to watch that and everything. But it's good to know that you've had these projects and everything, and that
Yeah.
a lot of you've been able to really keep going through COVID. I've noticed, the last couple of years you've had quite a few titles that you've worked on and everything. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
You
Yeah,
know.
last year, it's so funny. At the very beginning of the year, um, I was actually working on the Deceased Won't Desist and another project, which was a fan film. It was called MIB. It's a Men in Black fan film. So I was right in the middle of working on both of those when COVID hit.
Mhm.
So the Deceased Won't Desist got put on hold. Men in Black, we were supposed to shoot that next week, and then that one was postponed. So for a few months everything was put off, but last year in August everything started up again. All the films that were put on hold for a few months, they all kind of started up around the same time. So between the beginning of August of 2020 and November of 2020, I was literally working on one film after another, after another, after another, after another. I think I
Mhm.
worked on 6 different films within those few months. Boom, boom,
Right.
boom, boom, boom. It was insane, but it was
Mhm.
it was wonderful.
Well, great, great. Have any of the films been going to any festivals or anything like that? Being featured in film festivals or anything?
Well, one of the films that I shot last year is called You Like to Draw with a question mark at the end.
Mhm.
And that's directed by Todd Ernest Braley, who is also another very good friend of mine. It's wonderful because I've been working with some very close friends of mine, and so the experience of working with people who you're close to has been just wonderful.
Mhm.
So we did that film last year, and just I think it was September. Yes, September. So that was last month. He had a little premiere which I wasn't able to go to because I was actually working on location on another film, but I was planning on going to.
Mhm.
But they had a little premiere in Grand Junction, Colorado, where we shot it on location there. And so that film is pretty much ready to go. He's doing a few last minute touches to the film, and then he is planning on putting it in a few select film festivals,
Mhm.
and he's working on distribution deals right now. So I'm not sure when it'll be available, but now this particular film is a wonderful, heartfelt, tearjerker family drama. And it's a story about a young woman who's suffering from a traumatic brain injury from a car accident.
Mm.
And I play the mother of that young woman. And there's also a teenage sister, which would be my daughter. So it's a wonderful family film. There's another role played by Trista Robinson, who's a good friend of mine, who plays a very crass, caustic, busybody, pushy aunt.
Mhm.
So the story is basically all these family dynamics and other um, uh, issues that the young woman with the traumatic brain injury is facing, trying to be more independent. And so it's a really wonderful film, and it's one that I really can't wait for people to see.
Good, good, good. Well, that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
It seems like a lot of the film festivals are starting up again. There were a number of them that are over on the East Coast that I know of that kind of went virtual last year, where you
Yeah.
could watch all the films online and everything. But they're starting to open up again to where people can actually go out and visit, a facility and sit down and watch a movie in a theater type setting and everything, which is good. And it looks like the cons are starting to come back too, all the horror cons and comic
Yes,
cons and all that. And
I'm seeing that. Yeah.
yeah, yep. And it just seems like I tell you, the people, the various fandoms out there are just phenomenal. are just
Mhm.
phenomenal. The people in there, I mean, sometimes, I've had a lot of people that have followed me on Twitter. Not like I know what I'm doing on Twitter or anything. I'm probably the biggest dork on Twitter that's ever out there. But since they saw me in Gotham and they liked my character, they've been following me on there. And I tell you what, these people that love Gotham, or, another one is like Star Trek, where there seems to be like a huge community of fans. These people are just absolutely wonderful. It almost seems like they know more about my career than I do. I mean,
Wow.
you know,
So I know that show Gotham, I have to admit I haven't actually seen it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
know I've heard of it. So
Hmm.
I didn't realize you were on it.
Yes, yes, I was on it. I had a part where I was lucky to actually get that part. It was towards the end of shooting. I was actually in the last episode filmed and the third to last that was aired. And I played a small part. I was a fellow by the name of Dale. I was one of the Penguin's henchmen, and I ended up getting shot by the ventriloquist. So it was a fun part. It was really a great experience. And a couple of people saw me on Twitter, and then they started following. And they just would ask me a question once in a while, and I'd talk to them nicely. And there's like a huge, huge group that apparently Gotham was stopped prematurely. It was scheduled to go 7 seasons, and it went halfway into 5. And they are lobbying. And I tell you what, these folks are going absolutely viral with their pleas and their requests to any network that would pick up Gotham and finish the business, finish the story.
Wow.
And, it just goes to show you, you never know when you do something that really means something to somebody, you know.
This is true.
And I have all kinds of people on my show here, and I'll just kind of, won't go on about this, but there's so many different people because I have bands, I have all kinds of performers, I have people in film, on television, radio, and it really means something when you see people out there that really like something that you do. And like a lot of people out there tell me that play in bands, they've had some people coming out to see them on their anniversary for 10, 15 years. When you do something that becomes a part of somebody's routine, or a tradition for somebody, it really means something. It's very flattering to the person, and then also really means a lot that their work actually made a difference for somebody.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you this here. You've done a couple of other films, in the last couple of years. I think you had mentioned a Western.
I did. I shot a Western last year called Showdown in Yesteryear. And this speaking of film festivals, so Showdown in Yesteryear is the feature film version of a film that my friend Tim O'Hearn
Mm-hmm.
directed and wrote. It's The Door. It's based on The Door. The Door is a short film
Mm-hmm.
starring Jeff Grinnell, who is also the star of Showdown in Yesteryear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to give anything away because
Sure.
that'll also give away the plot to Showdown
Yeah.
in Yesteryear.
Right.
But The Door has won so many awards, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't name off the film festivals, but a lot of the film festivals are Western themed film festivals, and then other film festivals as well. I know The Door has been in a lot of film festivals over the past few years, and like I said, it's won a lot of awards. So now I didn't know about the short film The Door when Tim approached me about Showdown in Yesteryear, but he did ask if I'd like to be involved, and I read the script. I thought it was wonderful. But it is a fantasy Western, and part of it takes place in present day,
Mm-hmm.
and the other half of it, or the majority of it, takes place in the Old West. And so I really wanted to be in the part of the story that happens in the Old West, and we made that happen. So we shot that last year in a place called Dogwood Pass. It's Dogwood Pass. And that's where they also shot the short film version. So when he wanted to make a feature film version, he had a filmmaker who's also a brilliant writer. His name's Gregory Lamberson, who I haven't had the pleasure of working with yet myself, but we've been friends for many years. And so he wrote the feature film version of the script for Showdown and Yesteryear. Anyway, we shot it last year. That was another film that was postponed for a little bit, but then we shot it last year in Ohio. And so that one is in post-production right now, and I haven't seen any of it yet. So I'm really very anxious to get to see some of it finally. But Vernon Wells is also in it, and Jeff Grinnell, the star of The Door, is also starring as the same character. And it's a wonderful story. So that one, I don't know if it'll be out next year. I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed, but you know, whenever they get it ready. But that is one of the films that I worked on last year. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. So it sounds like you've been up to all kinds of things and everything, and keeping it going through COVID and everything else. Yeah. I've gotten some work myself, and it's really been interesting, how they're doing going through all the COVID protocols and everything. A couple of things where you finish saying something and immediately your mask goes right back on. Production staff behind plexiglass, they have a little spot for the camera to shoot through, but they're standing behind plexiglass, keeping distance, and all the things that people are doing to try to keep this awful disease from spreading and everything, and keeping their safe set and everything. So I wanted to ask you here. So we're in Halloween season here. And Halloween seems to be the big holiday, especially for people in the performing arts. Everybody really seems to love it. When you get a bunch of creative people really have come up with some awesome costumes, some awesome projects and things that are centered around Halloween. Do you have are there any like favorite horror movies or anything you'd like to tell us about, or tell us a bit about that, if you would.
Popular horror films or horror films that I've been in?
Well, ones that you've been in are great. And then also ones that you enjoy watching too. And you can also tell us about the favorite ones that you've been in too.
Well, one of my favorite horror films that I was in starred Karen Black, and this was done in the early 1990s. It's called Evil Spirits. It stars Karen Black and Artie Johnson, and there's actually quite a few notable character actors that is in it. And Virginia Mayo, who was a huge star in the 40s, she was also in it. But that one, I love that one. Oh, Michael Berryman stars in that film as well. And that is a lesser known film that I was in, but it's a really good movie. And I'm always so happy when I found out that someone's actually seen it. I'm like, oh my God, you saw Evil Spirit. So that's one of my favorite ones. A couple other favorites of mine. There was a couple like horror comedies, like The Invisible Maniac is very funny. Directed by Adam Rifkin, and let's see, in Beverly Hills Vamp, directed by Fred Olin Ray. So those are a few of the favorites that I was in.
Yeah, was that with Eddie Deason was in that?
In Beverly Hills Vamp. He was yeah. And I was actually in a couple films with him, so he's a really fun guy.
He is.
But let's see, and oh, so earlier this year I did a film that I'm looking forward to seeing when it gets, when it's completed.
Yeah.
It's not exactly, I wouldn't categorize it as a horror film. It's more of a psychological thriller, but it is a vampire film. Although, did you ever see the Nicolas Cage film Vampire's Kiss?
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Where he just thinks he's a vampire and then he ends up actually acting out his vampire fantasies.
I believe so. I think it's been a while, but I think I have. Yes.
Well, in that one, he just turns out to be deranged. He's not really a vampire. So so my friend Monty Light wrote and directed Blood Covered Chocolate. And the interesting thing about this film is it's in black and white. And there's certain scenes that are colored red, and there'll be certain scenes that are blue, and they symbolic. I can't talk. They're symbolic to what's going on in the story, but it's a vampire story, but it's more of a psychological thriller, because you're taken along in this journey where you think one thing is happening, and then you find out, no, wait, is he wait, no, is he insane? What's wrong with him? Does he have a mental disorder? And then at the very end, you're still left kind of scratching your head, is like, okay, what just happened? So I'm really looking forward to seeing that, because I really loved the script. But on to some of my favorite horror films. Well, my husband and I have been watching, there's this channel that's been playing a lot of the old classic black and white horror films. So, like The Mummy and Frankenstein and Son of Frankenstein and Wolfman. But one of my favorite horror films, it's The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. Wait. No, I think I have the wrong actor. It's Anthony Hopkins and Emily Blunt.
Yep.
And is it Benicio del Toro, or which actor?
I think it was. It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love that one. Also, we were talking, because Casper's been on. Casper with oh gosh, I'm just having a hard time with names right now. The girl that played Wednesday on the Addams Family, Christina Ricci.
Christina Ricci, yeah.
She did, we were trying to remember the name of this werewolf movie she did, which I really enjoyed. It's called, and then I remembered the name, it's called Cursed. So she starred in this werewolf film that I really liked, and I was like, oh yeah, we got to watch Cursed again. And there's a few films that we like to watch every year. And what's another one we were going to watch? I'm having trouble remembering, but one film that I'm really anxious to see, that I didn't see in the theaters, but I rediscovered it. I'm like, there's this movie I got to see. It's Dr. Sleep with Rebecca Ferguson. There's, of course, other stars in it, but it's Ian McGregor, and it's a kind of a sequel to The Shining. It is a sequel. It's a sequel to The Shining.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you hadn't heard of it, it's called Dr. Sleep. It's only a couple years old. And so I really want to see that. We're gonna watch it.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so many classic. The Shining, of course, is a classic, which I've seen many times. And what's some of your favorite horror films?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, before I get into mine, I got to tell you, what was Karen Black like? Because I absolutely love her.
Everybody adores Karen Black. And, of course, it's so sad that she left us way too early. She was too young. But she was a doll. She was so nice to work with. She was, I would say, I guess, a little eccentric, maybe. That's not really the right word. She was unique. And I can't put it into like a concrete story of what made her unique or what made her interesting or different. She just was, her mannerism and just the way she spoke and just her personality. She was really one of a kind, and she was so talented, really talented. We had this one scene at the very end of the film, and I don't want to say what it is because it'll give away the twist in the plot. But we had this scene at the end, which was a very emotional scene, and we did it like in one take, and it was it was a beautiful scene, and it was lovely, and it was really, really very special to get to work with her.
She's just amazing, actually she's been in a couple of my favorites. I don't know if you ever saw one. It was out in the mid 70s, and I think it was actually a made for TV one. It was called Trilogy of Terror.
Yes.
And my favorite one, it was three, obviously a trilogy, three
Yeah.
episodes, like a half hour long. The third one was my favorite, and that's got to be one of my favorites of all time. Is when
With the doll, with
somebody
the
sent,
doll.
somebody sent her an African doll,
Yeah.
and it was modeled after like some sort of a tribe's warrior, and he
Right.
had a little gold chain around his waist, and they said never ever remove the gold chain. Well, apparently it fell off or something while she was in the shower, of course.
Right. Yeah.
And then she gets chased and terrorized by this little doll who's like a foot tall.
Yeah,
And
it was very well done.
it was.
Yes.
I mean, something you would think, and I don't want to say it like that, but that with that scenario, that had all the potential in the world to be a bad movie. But you know what? It wasn't. And that just goes to show you, when you have good people working on something like that, they can make it, you actually kind of fall into that story a bit, and you actually feel for her, and you actually kind of, the suspension of disbelief,
Yes.
You're actually in there with her, and you're like, oh my God, here he comes. You actually kind of fall into it. They're able to do that. I mean, there's been a number of them out there that I've seen where it just, it's just like, oh geez, but that one wasn't. And she actually did that, one of those Rob Zombie movies too, which I really liked her in as well.
Yeah.
She's
really good in it.
So I've always liked her. Whenever I've seen her in something, I've always liked her.
The House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yes. Yeah. Because the one after that was The Devil's Rejects. I think she may have passed away in between those movies. Does that sound right?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Because I think for the second one, they actually brought in, if I'm not mistaken, was it the actress that played Lana on Three's Company? I can't remember her name.
Oh, Pamela. Oh God, what's her last name? I know her. I mean, I just saw her a couple years ago at a birthday party.
I think I think she was in the second one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
but,
she was in the second one.
Yeah,
but
The Devil's Rejects.
She didn't play the same role that Karen Black played. She was a victim. She was totally different. Role.
Okay.
Yeah, she wasn't that character. She's
completely
different character, but she was very good in it.
Oh, yeah, she definitely is. She definitely was.
And I'm so sorry, I just can't think of her last name right now.
I know. There was also some of the other ones I like. Of course, I like all the old Universal, the granddaddies of them all, and the thing is that's really good about this, the connections I've been able to make and everything. There's a friend of mine was an author who's actually written very extensive and deeply detailed and researched books about that era. And I've had him on as a guest, and the things that he knows about the movies and how they were made back then. I'm always fascinated with how movies are made. And I'm sure, you've probably been fascinated by special effects people in some of the movies that you've done over time, how they do these things. And he was just telling me in just a matter of years, how they were able to take something very complicated and how they made up Boris Karloff to play Frankenstein to something much more basic a number of years later when Glenn Strange played the same part. They were able to take a lot of.
We just saw that too.
Yeah.
The other a couple nights ago, the one with the other guy.
Right, Glenn Strange. Yes. Right.
We saw that one.
Yep. An interesting bit of trivia too, because they were also in the. They used a lot of the same people that did the Universal movies, like in the Abbott and Costello versions of them too. Abbott and Costello.
That's a favorite. What's that one called?
Abbott and Costello
meet
Frankenstein. Yep.
Yes.
An interesting bit of trivia, because I like to watch. I don't know if you get a show called Svengoolie.
Yeah, we watch it every Saturday. We're huge fans.
Me too.
Every Saturday.
Me too. I like how he brings in the trivia and facts about these movies. And one thing I thought was interesting, and if you watch it closely, you'll notice there was one scene where Glenn Strange had to sit out because he had twisted his ankle or something and wasn't able to perform that day. And they actually put the Frankenstein stuff on Lon Chaney Jr. because he wasn't filming a Wolfman segment that day.
I didn't know that.
There was a scene where the Frankenstein monster throws the woman out the window in the lab. And Costello was tied down. And of course, he's freaking out and trying to get out of there. But that was actually Lon Chaney Jr. instead of Glenn Strange in that scene because he had injured himself filming the day before. You know, don't you just love the stories?
You're talking about the Abbott and Costello film then.
The Abbott and Costello version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Glenn Strange played the Frankenstein monster in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman as well. And he actually, in that one, he was blind. That's why he does that walking around with his arms out and everything. That was actually the first one where they did that, because in a previous movie, the monster was blinded by something. And that's why he always walked around with his hands out. If you noticed in the earlier movies, he never did. He was stiff. But
this is the first time hearing that. I had no idea.
Study my Svengoolie, you know.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, he's it's just so interesting, the stories and the tidbits and everything. And then, you know, we have the classics, you know, in the 30s and 40s there. And then, like, when you get into the 50s, you kind of moved into the sci-fi. Of course, the Ed Wood movies, you know, who could not love those? You've seen, you know, like Plan 9 and some of those other ones, right?
Did I ever see that? I know I've seen scenes, but yeah. I don't think I sat down to watch it.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting about that is Bela Lugosi was in that, and he passed away during production. So they continued filming. And what they did is they used an actor who looked like him from here up, and they just had him walk into the room whenever he had a scene with a cape over his face.
Oh,
that's how they were able to get away with that. And then when you get into the 60s, you know, of course, you have the sci-fi, and then, you know, the Hammer movies came out that were made over in England. How about when they're getting into the 70s too? Some of the ones I really enjoyed from the 70s were, of course, earlier on, you had a lot of the ones about evil spirits and possession, like The Omen, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist. Then getting into the environmental disasters or the disasters in general.
Yeah.
Like, and in a lot of ways, you know, they're not really horror in the traditional sense, but the antagonist
I like those natural disaster films.
Yeah. But then in a lot of ways, you know, the antagonist it could be, you know, somebody not willing to listen to science, somebody trying to get big for their britches, like the Towering Inferno. And of course, what the hell could go wrong there, right? Well, a huge fire, right? And they had to get everybody out. Like the airports, of course, the Poseidon Adventure, and then the other ones like Jaws.
I loved the Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah, that was a great one, wasn't it?
It was great. It was really good.
It was an all-star cast and good performances out of everybody, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And how about getting into then, of course, you know, Jaws, I think, inspired a lot of when animals attack style movies, like, because there was the one about the bees, there was one about rabbits, there was one, you know, of course, Orca with Jaws kind of ran parallel. And you know, that was one that I really enjoyed a lot too. Had you seen both Jaws and Orca?
I did. I do remember seeing Orca with Richard Harris, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen it for probably a couple decades. But I did see it, and it was good. And of course, Jaws, I've seen, you know, over the years. I'll see it every now and again. And now Jaws really is a true classic. It's so good on so many levels.
Right.
I love it. And another film that I like, which is not. I wouldn't call it like it is horror, but I wouldn't call it straight horror. I mean, it's more sci-fi.
Right.
The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh yeah.
I love that film. It's so good.
That was one of the ones when I was coming up in middle school and I had cable TV for the first time. One of the ones I would, try to stay up to watch, because there was always that one. And then another popular movie of that time was ReAnimator. Did you like that one, or had you ever seen that?
Did see ReAnimator with Barbara Crampton, and I have been able to socialize with Barbara Crampton. It's been lovely running into her every once in a blue moon, and of course, on Instagram, I follow her on Instagram. She's always posting, throwback pictures from the ReAnimator, and the other one that she's in too, which is forget the name of it, but Jeffrey Combs is in that one too. And it's another one. It's like a sequel to ReAnimator.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so those films, Cronenberg, it's Cronenberg, right? Those really those were quite impactful. They're very memorable. Watching those when I was much younger and seeing those films just blew my mind. The special effects were phenomenal.
Oh, they sure were. They really were.
Yeah, and it really stands up. And so we were watching, my husband and I were watching some show about, really, people's favorite Halloween films. And what came up was The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox, which is definitely one of my all-time favorite, like, spooky films. It's different, and Dee Wallace is wonderful in it, and Busey, what's his name, the actor, not Gary Busey, but the son.
Oh, his son, yeah.
Jake? Is it Jake Busey? Something
yes,
like that?
I think it is Jake, yeah.
And they are amazing, and Michael J. Fox and the ghosts, the people that play the ghosts. I mean, that's a really, really well made film. And of course there's some amazing horror films that are made now more currently, but there's something about around the 90s. In the 90s, they were doing a lot of really good films. Now, I don't know, I can't get into these films that are more like what they call torture porn, with the Saw movies and and those type of films where everybody's just screaming through the whole entire film and people are getting tortured the whole entire film, and there's just limbs are being sawed off and those kind of things. I don't know. I mean, I know there's a huge audience for that, and there's obviously a huge fan base for those type of films. It doesn't really turn me on. I like films more like The Frighteners, and I mean, there's so many good films. It's just like you could be talking about these films for weeks and you wouldn't run out of material because there's so many really good ones.
Oh, absolutely not. There's a couple of indie films that I've really loved over the years, and made by a filmmaker named Lance Weiler. And they were filmed here on the East Coast, and you see them every once in a while. They've been on like the premium channels on cable, I think like Showtime or Cinemax or something once in a while. He made two of them. One of them was called The Last Broadcast, and it actually came out a year before Blair Witch did, and it was a found footage film.
Oh.
Yep, where a bunch of guys that ran a cable access TV show went out into the woods looking for the Jersey Devil. Okay. And they didn't find the Jersey Devil, but they found a murderer out there. And what happened was the whole thing was, and the reason I mentioned it came out before Blair Witch was because a lot of the movie was watching footage that was found in cameras that was found laying on the ground, and they kind of pieced the story together that way.
Right.
Yeah. And then another one was called Head Trauma, where it was more of a psychological thriller as compared to like a slasher movie or anything like that. But you're watching this movie, and a person, comes back to town who'd been a drifter, getting ready to sell his deceased grandmother's house. And all these strange things are going on in the house while he's living there. And I won't give away the ending, but it's well worth the watch. And there's just a really, really brilliantly played twist in it, which I thought was really well done, where just when you think you got the whole story down and you know exactly what's going on. Something just comes in and completely knocks you for a loop. And I thought that was really, an interesting thing to put into an interesting way to do a movie with such a twist like that. And, you're just like, wow, wait a minute. How did I not see that? Then, of course, when you look back, but it's just like, it really blew my mind and I really enjoyed it the first time I saw it. You know, so many different ways to make horror. There's the psychological end. Of course, there's the graphic visual end of it as well. But I'm a little more partial to the psychological end, the suspense part of it too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit too. Some of the things, looking back, you've got quite a resume on IMDb, and all of the movies that you've made. You can see everything that just about everything that you've done on there. Let me ask you this: if there was a couple of them that you could say, when it's all said and done, and maybe if one day if somebody was writing, your final obituary, what were the ones that you would say you would like to be remembered for the most? The ones that you may be the proudest of?
Well, those films haven't been made yet.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's a good answer.
I have so many really great projects coming up.
Yeah.
That haven't been shot yet.
Sure.
My friend John Rain, who's wrote Vampire Penance, will be shooting that next year.
Right.
And also a Western, because it's funny because people assume that horror films are like, my thing. Like, that's my.
No, you've got a well-rounded resume. Yeah.
Thank you.
You do.
But my favorite genre is actually Westerns.
Is that right? That right?
That is my favorite genre. I love Westerns. I can't get enough. I just love Westerns. So I was so thrilled that I finally got to be in a Western last year, the Showdown and Yesteryear film. But John Rain is writing and directing a film called Bullets for Jesus, Killing for the Lord, and that will also be probably filmed next year. And I have a juicy role in that. And then there's also a few other films that he has. The Vampire Penance film, it's actually a trilogy, so we'll be shooting the first one next year, but there's a prequel and a sequel to that film. So I'm not sure if we're shooting all of those next year or within the next couple of years.
Right.
But there's also a crime drama that I'll be in that he's writing and directing. So I have, at least the next few years where I'll be working with John Rain. And
well, wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. It is wonderful. And also next year I'll be working with a filmmaker. His name's Chase Dudley. Right now he's shooting a film called Locked In, starring Robert Mukes. But next year there's a film that I'll be in. I don't want to say too much about it because he hasn't made like the official announcements yet. But then there's a film that he'll be filming after that, which I also in that one I have a leading role in. So I'll be working with him next year, and then whenever he does the other one. So I have, and then I have some other very exciting projects with a writer filmmaker named Mikey Tiffany, and those are sci-fi animated fantasy films.
Okay, so they're so you'll be doing voice mostly?
It's a mix. It's live action mixed with animation, and there's a few projects, and they're all interrelated. So I will be part of each one of these, and so those I don't know if the films, if anything, will be shot next year or if it'll be the following year, but it's not too far off in the future. And there's like a bunch of these projects, so those are going to be incredibly exciting to work on. So I've got westerns and sci-fi and crime dramas coming up. Oh, and also Todd Ernest Braley, who I just worked with last year on that film You Like to Draw. We will be shooting a film called, I believe the title is On a Blue Day, and
Hmm.
that's about a young girl with autism.
Oh, okay.
So that's another family drama that I will be in. So I have, and then of course there are a few horror films that I will also be in the future. So,
Mhm.
so when it comes to legacy, the legacy hasn't happened yet, but
Mhm.
it's very close to happening. So I really feel that these next handful of projects that I will be starring in are going to be projects where I will feel like, okay, now I'm doing the type of work
Mhm.
that I really have been wanting to do. Starting last year with You Like to Draw, the story about the girl with the traumatic brain
Yeah.
injury.
Yep.
I can't wait for people to see it.
Mhm.
It's very touching. It's very, there's a lot of dynamics to it. And so, you know, my my tenure of doing comedy horrors, because mainly the films I did in the 80s and 90s were mostly comedy horrors,
Mhm.
not true horror. There were a couple films that would be categorized as actual real horror films, but a lot of them were comedies.
Mhm.
And the people that know me say, "Oh my God, I wish you would do more comedies." And I'm like, well, I'm waiting for people to cast me in more comedies. But
Easier said than done, you know.
the deceased won't desist, which will be available very soon. That is a comedy. It's pretty darn funny. But it's a murder mystery comedy, so there are a few gruesome deaths in it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I really enjoy having a good variety of different types of films. I think I would be bored to tears if I was just doing the same genre like
Mhm.
forever. I think I'd be like, oh, okay, I can't handle another slasher film.
I hear you. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. And,
But
and I, I
when I'm able to get it, when I'm able to mix it up, westerns, family
Mhm.
dramas, a few horror films sprinkled in, for good
Mhm.
measure, and all the films that I'm attached to coming up, they're all really good quality films, and some of them will have A-list actors, so that's very exciting.
Well, good, good. That's great to hear. That's great to
Thank
hear.
you. Thank you.
And that's awesome that you've got all these things to look forward to and everything. We're going to be seeing a lot of you. It sounds like.
Thank you.
Yep. Do you have? Let me ask you this. And I know you've been working with a lot of different people over the years.
Yeah.
Do you have any bucket lists as far as people you'd like to work with? I know you pretty much kind of answered that you like to do all different genres of films. So that would be like one sort of bucket list there, which you sort of already answered for us. But are there people in particular that you've been really wanting to work with over the years, or
As far as
anything,
directors or
directors
other,
or other actors or anybody in any capacity?
well, I totally have a bucket list for actors. And then there's actresses who I'm just obsessed about,
Mhm.
like Emily Blunt, and I love Karen Gillian, and I'm probably saying her last name wrong, and Emma Stone, and people like that, and Kate Blanchett, and just I mean, there's so many like amazing uh actresses, and as far as more like independent film actors, actors who are mainly doing independent things. There's a lot of friends that we say to each other, oh, I want to work with you, and there's like, I want to work with you too. And directors, like I have a friend named Harley Wallen and his wife Katie Wallen, and they're doing all sorts of projects, and we've been talking about, and he's a writer director, and the Katie along with Harley, they're producers. They produce these a lot of these films, and they have an award-winning series called Tale of Tales, which is like tail on a animal and tail
Mhm.
of a tale, like a story. So they have this Tale of Tales series on Tubi, which is doing incredibly well. So we keep talking about working together. So it'll happen. And as far as like people like, of course, who wouldn't want to work with Nicolas Cage?
Oh, sure.
And Christopher Walken and
sure, legends.
And it's so funny because I have so many actor friends who've worked, and director friends who've worked with Eric Roberts, and I've had a couple of close calls of working on a film with Eric Roberts, but I have not worked with Eric Roberts. And I'm like, all my friends have worked with Eric Roberts. One of these days I will work with Eric Roberts, you know, because he's amazing, and he continues to be amazing. I see him, it doesn't matter what level of film he's in, because he dabbles in all different levels of film, but he's always very good. He's always very good. And Tom Sizemore. I actually was in a film that Tom Sizemore had a little cameo in. It's a film called The Lich. It's a little low budget film made by my friend James Balsamo, who's very funny and very clever. And I just had a little role in it. Tom Sizemore did this cameo. It was so funny. I'm like, how did you get Tom Sizemore to do a cameo in your film? But James Balsamo, he has a talent for roping people into doing cameos in his film. But, people like Tom Sizemore, I saw Tom Sizemore, speaking of my friend Harley and Kitty Wallen, Tom Sizemore was in one of their films, and oh gosh, which one was it? He was amazing in it. And I can see the title in my head, but my my brain's not working where I can tell you what the title is. But anyway, he's very good in it. So just these amazing actors. There's too many to I mean, I don't know, because my brain starts to smoke when I think about all the
possibilities.
To work with, but I have worked with people who are absolutely amazing. I mean, I don't think people really realize the amazing people I've worked with. I mean, some people, of course, know, like Catherine Bigelow. I was in Point Break, and I worked with Catherine Bigelow, and I was in a scene with Keanu Reeves and Lori Petty, and I was talking to them. And I mean, I'm just the fire eater in the movie, but still I was there, and I was, not like talking to Patrick Swayze, but I was watching him. And, I worked with Paul Verhoeven. I mean, I've worked with some just top drawer directors, legends, David Lynch. I was in Wild at Heart, and I had a teensy role where I was fire eating in the background in this big scene. But I've worked with some real legends. John Hughes. I worked on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And
yes.
My scene got cut, but I worked with John Hughes. I worked in a scene with John Candy and Steve Martin. I was in a big scene with them where I was improving this whole scene. And I mean, it's unfortunately I got left on the cutting room floor, but there's a version floating around out there that I am in.
Yep.
Oh, you know about that? We talked about this last time?
You did. Right? You did mention it last time, but I wanted to tell you a little bit more about that, because I found out a little bit more.
You did?
Yes, I had Chris Candy on the show, John's oldest son, or youngest child, only son, Chris. Okay. And one thing that he told me was that you could probably make, he said, and no doubt, you could probably make about 7 Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with all the footage they shot. He said it was probably one of the most overshot movies ever.
I heard that too.
Yeah. and I don't know if I told you this, but there was a scene because I had Larry Hankin as a guest. And Larry, I'm sure you know from he's been in everything. He was the fake Kramer on Seinfeld when they were,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
played Doobie the cab driver in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Okay.
He picked him up in Wichita and was taken to that little hotel. Well,
Uh-huh.
there was footage of that Larry told me about where they filmed an entire 10-hour day. It was the three of them in that cab improvising. And
Oh.
when they actually made a film of that, they shaved it down to about a half hour, 45 minutes. And I think one of either the directors, either Cameron or Hughes, had a party at his house and they showed that footage.
Yeah,
And that was the only time it was ever released. It never went out on a DVD or anything.
Yeah, you told me the story, but
Yeah.
did I tell you about I have had two people now tell me that they saw me both stories. They were in Canada at the time, but different times. I took so it's out there. There's some version of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles playing on Canadian TV.
Yep.
And it's out there because I had two people now tell me, I saw you on TV and I was in Canada and you were in this scene, and they told me what the scene was. I'm like, yep, that's the scene. So it exists. It does exist. It's like aliens. It does exist.
Well, listeners, if you ever get your hands on that footage, somebody here would love to see it. Somebody here would love to have a copy of it here. So, make sure you let me know. Hit me up, and I'll make sure it gets in Debra's hands if you ever get a hold of it. So, most definitely. So, well, Debra, I appreciate you coming back again. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up right about now.
Okay.
But it was just great to have you and to hear about what's new and everything. At this point, I would like to give you your shameless plug. This is the shameless plug portion of the program where you may shamelessly plug anything you'd like to shamelessly plug with no shamelessness spared and all shamelessness included. So have at it.
Wow, that was good. Is that like Peter Piper picked the pickled peppers?
I'm not that good. I don't know.
No, but before we go though, favorite Halloween candy.
Favorite Halloween candy. Boy, I know the ones that I was just like pretty much like any miniature of the standards of the classics, like any of the miniature Milky Way, Three Musketeers, or Hershey bars are good with me. Snickers, yeah. Yep. How about you?
Yeah, I love any of the chocolate little miniature candy bars, any of them. Milky Way is a good one. But dots, I love dots.
Yeah, dots. I also started to like every once in a while you would get Malomars, I think, or Mallow cups. They're like Reese's cups, but they have marshmallow.
Reese's cups. Hands down, my favorite. Yes.
You know what? And this is here. I'll tell you something that kind of would sound like a horror movie here. I think there was a scene like this in Poltergeist. Believe it or not, one time for Halloween candy, I got the miniature Reese's cups, the miniature Reese's cups.
Yeah.
Like the ones that are about the size of a quarter. The
little tiny ones. Yeah.
I bit into it and there were maggots in it.
No.
Yes. And I went to my mother and
was it in a package? I mean,
yes, it was wrapped, but apparently I don't know how that happened, but we broke another one open too, and it was in, I guess they must have come from the same house. Maybe the people had them sitting out or something.
Wait, were you a kid trick-or-treating?
Yeah.
How does that happen in a sealed bag?
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking maybe I don't know how it happened. I just know I bit into it and I saw what I saw. My mother saw it too. And she called the doctor in the middle of the night. That was back when you could just call the doctor. Well, no, I spit it out.
Oh,
that was like
you bit it.
I bit it. Like you bite something and then you look at it, and then I was like,
but those are little. Don't you pop the whole thing in your mouth?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Lord knows how many of them I ate before that, fully ingested.
So you were actively eating them. So you had already eaten a few.
Oh yeah, yeah. We were finished trick or treating. We were watching TV and eating our
You were just
candy.
pounding down the candy, and then
Yep.
you just happen to look at it, and there are maggots.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough. And
Okay, I'm gonna be checking my candy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, as if as if the threat of razor blades and pins isn't bad enough, you know. We've got, yeah.
Oh,
I'm just speculating that maybe they had it sitting out for a number of days or something, and
who
or
knows? It's
maybe
weird.
flies got into the packaging. Like maybe they come in a plastic bag. Maybe in the factory, flies got in there and were able to lay.
Something.
Yeah, but oh boy, was that that was rough. And I tell you, right after that, I turned into the Exorcist girl.
Oh, did you
Oh,
projectile vomit?
I went full Mr. Creosote from Monty Python.
Oh, care for a mint?
Exactly.
It's wafer thin.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have to have you come back once sometime and talk comedy classics.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I really enjoy. I follow you on Facebook, and I'm rooting for you every time I see that you get a project or something.
I see you. I see you. Liking my stuff, and once in a while you say something, and I also follow you too. And
Well, thank you. So you're the one.
Okay, one last thing. Okay,
Mhm.
my very most horror film that scares the bejesus out of me, just terrifies me when I was, younger, because now, horror films don't really scare me too much now. But when I was younger, was the Amityville Horror, the original one. Now, the one with what's her face and what's his face?
The guy, was it the guy who was
Margot Kidder and
Bolin? Was it the guy that
Brolin?
Yeah, James Brolin. Yeah.
Okay, that's my number one. What's your number one?
Number one, boy.
I mean, The Exorcist, of course, but Amityville Horror, I gotta say, really got me.
I have to say my favorite one of all time, and that's a tough question. I would have to say probably just in terms of the way it was made and everything, Head Trauma by Lance Weiler.
What's it called? What?
Head Trauma by Lance Weiler. I described that one to you a little bit. It was an indie film that was made in Philly about 15 years ago.
That one that you told me about already. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I haven't heard of that one, but
yeah. Well, it's like I said, it was a smaller, production, a smaller distribution and everything.
Well, what about a bigger one that people have, that a wider audience has?
Okay, something like that.
Yeah, something that I would have heard of.
Okay, when I was, I used to spend the night at my grandmother's when I was a kid, and she was pretty cool with me staying up and watching TV. And she had like a spare room I used to stay in, and there was a little black and white television in there. So it was dark. It was around 1 o'clock in the morning. I laid down in bed and I just reached over and turned the little knob to the black and white TV. And there was a scene in a movie called Beyond the Door. It was very close to The Exorcist. It was a possession movie. But you see this woman sitting there, and she actually kind of even looked like Reagan from The Exorcist. She's kind of sitting there, and like she looks down, and then she looks up, and then she looks weird because the demon is coming out, and she just like looks at somebody and goes, "Who are you?" And that was like right when I turned the TV on, the screen pops up, and all of a sudden I see this lady. She like looks up and goes, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Ah!" And I just flipped the screen, like turned it off for a second. Then my grandmother said, "What are you watching in there?" And I said, "I don't know." So she got the TV guy. She goes, "Oh, Beyond the Door. Oh, have fun with that, And
I'm sorry, it's another one I've never heard of.
Yeah. And that, it was called Beyond the Door, but it also had it was also distributed under another title, which I can't remember right now. there have been people that I've brought it up to before that have known it by the other title. I just can't think of what it is right now, but it was like basically an exorcist that kind of scared the hell out of me. But I got to tell you, let me tell you my favorite horror thing of all time. In 1987, I was 18 years old and I come home. I had a job, came home on a Saturday night. And I used to just kind of take it easy in my room because by the time I got home from work, all my friends were already gone. You know, they were out partying or whatever. There were no cell phones or so. Sometimes what I would do if I would work late on Saturdays is I would go to some of the theaters, and a bunch of theaters around Baltimore would either show on Saturdays at midnight. They'd either show Rocky Horror or they'd show Pink Floyd The Wall. And I'd just go out and do that. You know, so then I get in my room, I sit on my bed and I'm ready to relax for a little bit. Then I hear this ad and it says, back in those, that was right when Faces of Death came out. And Faces of Death came out and there was like that big warning on Faces of Death that said banned in like 198 countries. I think probably more countries than we actually have. And it says, this movie is the worst movie ever. And it's as far as gore, and it is shocking. And there will be no pregnant women allowed, and there will be nobody with heart conditions allowed. And absolutely nobody under 18 will be permitted to see this film. And I was like, now I know what I'm doing tonight. So I went and I got in the car and I got to the theater, and it was The Evil Dead Part 2. That's how they marketed it. And
okay.
So I get in there.
Sure. I'm not positive if I've seen that one. I think I did, but I don't remember.
Bruce Campbell and
Oh, I think I did see it.
Yeah. And so I go in there and I get my big Pepsi and I get my big popcorn and I'm sitting there and I'm like ready to watch this thing. And I'm like, yes, here we go. Give it to me. By 10 minutes into that movie, I was laughing so hard. I had tears running down my face and I couldn't even breathe. That was like the best marketing of a movie ever. The best marketing of a movie ever. So, Yep. So again, Debra, thank you again so much. It's been wonderful having you again. Wonderful to see you. You're looking great. You're doing well.
I'll have to do my shameless plugging next time.
Okay. Well, now you can go ahead and do it real quick if you want.
Well,
go for it.
I already talked about stuff coming up. I got all sorts of films I'm doing next year. I have films coming out. I'm, was busy. We covered it. It.
Okay.
Everybody go follow me on Instagram. I'm the Debra Lamb. And of course I'm on Facebook, but everybody please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That would be really nice. Okay,
great. Well, folks, you heard her here. She came back to visit us again, and it was, I've been looking forward to having you back, Debra. It was absolutely wonderful.
Looking forward to seeing you guys again. Of course, your partner in crime isn't there tonight, but
unfortunately, he couldn't make it tonight, but he does send his regards. He definitely sends his regards. So, folks, we've had Debra Lamb here on FOWL Players Radio. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
So